Ahmad, thank you so much for joining me today. As one of the top agents and top teams at our brokerage, I think it's a very good time for us to kind of discuss what's happening in the market. In your opinion, what's happening in the marketplace right now?
Hi, Ricky. Thanks for having me. There's a few things that are happening in the market today. Um, so I'll give you a general scope of what's happening, and I'll give you a general scope of what's happening with buyers and sellers.
Sure.
The market's going in a way where everything's in the air, is how I call it. You cannot really give precise information as to what's happening, but based on my experience, it keeps changing every week. For instance, when there's a heads up about interest rates changing, a week or two before that, the market starts slowing down. And as soon as interests do change, for about a week after, everybody goes back to their mortgage brokers, so slow. And then 2 weeks right away after the interest rate, everything starts to go back to normalization where people are out there buying again. So it's a weird market because the interest rates keep fluctuating or changing consistently. So it keeps, the graph, I think, keeps going up and down. It's nothing that's consistent or however it is. But for buyers, what we're noticing is that they're very anxious. The same people that in January would have put hundreds of thousands over, all of a sudden are like super anxious, super nervous. They don't know what to do. Our job, especially with buyers, is educate. Keep educating the clients. Keep educating them as much as we can, because if we also look confused with them, all of a sudden it makes their nerves go from 100% to like 1,000%, and now their nervousness is gone. You lose them completely. And our job now is not just a sales job anymore. You got to service them. You got to keep educating them.
You got to be an advocate because there's so much information and a lot of it isn't correct. You're absolutely right. Knowledge is power in any market.
Yes. So then what we noticed is with sellers, it's completely different, where these are the same people that have been waiting and prolonging the process of selling their home. And now all of a sudden, the price of their home is not what it was a few months ago. It's drastically lower, and they get upset. And when you give them, especially when we go to listing presentations, they get beyond upset about, why are you quoting me so low? And we tell them about, this is reality, today's reality, and then we educate them again. So if you look at prices of 2019, if somebody bought a home in 2018, up until now, they're still up a few $100,000. They're still up a good $300,000 to $400,000. A normal home, in my perspective, let's say if you bought a home in 5 years ago, it should only go up between 100 to 150,000, just to be a gradual the norm. If you go from 2018 to 2022 and you're still at $400,000, that's still good money. That's still a good profit. That's still something that there's still equity left in your home. Now, people that have bought, for instance, at a higher amount and they're selling lower, those are the ones that should be concerned. So sellers are just, now that's 80% of sellers. About 20% of sellers, they realize that this is the norm. So if they sell at this market, they're also going to buy at this market.
Right.
When they sell low, they buy low. When they sell high, they have to buy high. And I always tell clients, I go, if you sell, don't go into a rental, because your money depreciates. When your money depreciates, now all of a sudden you're going to be upset because you cannot find the same home, inventory is less. It's a market. I think this is the normal market of what it was years ago. That crazy market is completely gone. It's a complete normal market where you sell your home, you do a 3 months closing, then you go look for a home. The full process is there now. We're not doing that rat race anymore where it's sell, buy, 30-day closings, 15-day closings. That's, I look at 2021 as a cross out year. I don't even do comparables on that year anymore.
Yeah. Well, I mean, 2021, for the record, was one of the highest, it's the highest year we've ever seen in terms of sales and growth and everything. And so naturally, when you compare any year with that year, it's only going to be lower. And what's been interesting about the conversation is the media has constantly been saying that sales are down. You know, January to January, sales are down. February to February, sales are down. When you're comparing the number of sales to an anomaly year, of course, they're going to be down. But what's happened since March is that now we're actually, for the first time, starting to see prices come down. And what's really interesting is that that's changing the dialogue. And it goes back to what you said about being an advocate and understanding the numbers. Because if your expectations are you're still going to get pre-March sales, you're not. And for the average consumer that doesn't need to sell, maybe they don't care. I think it's the consumers that get, you know, they kind of got in the crosshairs where they bought hoping to sell in the summer. Those are the people that really got impacted by this for the most part. You know, what's really interesting is that when you do the calculations, if you look at the average home price, let's say it was 1.7, in before March. Let's say January it was 1.7. Right now, the same property is worth about $1.3 million, hypothetically, give or take. Okay. So the $400,000 that you're losing, and you look at the interest rate. So post March, January, we're 1.9 variable 5-year, 30-year amortization. Now we're at 4.15%. That's the posted rate I saw this morning with TD. Okay. Even when you run the numbers at a 20% down, because that's what you would need on both of these properties, your down is lower. Yes, your interest rate's higher. But what's interesting is when you actually run those numbers, 1.7 versus 1.3, your mortgage payment only changes by $96 approximately.
Yeah, it's a very small amount that you're paying more, but you're actually in the long run, you're saving hundreds of thousands of dollars on a purchase price.
The crazy part, and you just nailed it. The crazy part is that if you look at your amortization schedule at the end of the 5-year term, you saved money on the property that you bought post-March.
Correct.
It's insane, and it makes a lot of sense. And having the right realtor that can educate you, that can actually crunch the numbers, because while this is happening with the property values going down, the rental rates are going up. So the same property that you're going to leave, the $1.7 million property, if we were to go to rent it in Brampton, that might be $4,500.
Correct.
And so if you're savvy, you have the right agent with you, you find a property with a finished basement that's legal, you rent it out, now you're getting paid to live in your property again.
Yeah. The biggest thing is you're saving that few $100,000 what you're saving, which is already the unrealistic thing, market. But what I'm noticing is that if you do not educate your clients, whether they're purchasing or selling, they're confused. Everybody in this market is confused.
Yeah.
So as realtors, I think it comes down to us now, because in the January market was throw a home that can't even see inside, it'll sell.
Yeah.
Anybody and everybody could have sold anything. The truth comes now where it's who can actually sell, who can actually buy, right? Because in today's market, it's educate. Gain as much education you can, provide that to your clients so that they're not confused. Because I noticed that even us as agents, we also get confused. We're also human beings. I got confused every time. So that's why we started studying the market trends.
Yes.
That's why I noticed that 2 weeks before the interest rate changes, the market's in a limbo. 2 weeks after the interest market changes, the market's in a limbo, and then it goes back to normalization. And then now now whenever we do our things, our listings, I make sure I don't fall in that little weird window, because I know it'll become a steal. So you got to go either before or after, just because people need time to go back to their mortgage rate. Like I speak to mortgage advisors and I ask them, what happens when the interest rate changes? So we have appointments booked back to back, people coming back to revisit us to see if they can still afford what their new buying power is.
Yeah.
That's what I think is happening. But I still think it's in the benefit of the buyers, especially when they're buying in today's market, because they're saving hundreds. Yes, the interest rates are gone higher, but you're saving hundreds of thousands of dollars. What happens if interest rates come back down?
Yeah,
we're going to go back to the same rat race that we were in.
Right? And it's a pendulum, right? It's like you said, what goes up goes down, what goes down goes up. And the reality is that there may be a certain point in the market where even though the Bank of Canada rate is increasing, banks will start competing where you see prime minus.
Banks will get money, yes.
Right? Yes. And think about it from a landlord, from a government perspective. Less transactions means less taxes.
Correct.
Which means less services. So it's all interconnected. So that's really good insight about it. What I want to ask you next is that, as of June, we're looking at about 2.5 months of inventory. And we talk to the average agent, they're saying it's a buyer's market. We know the reality is that up until about 4 months of inventory, it's a seller's market. So we are still very much in a seller's market. Properties aren't selling, you're listed in the morning, by evening it's gone, multiple offers firm. That's not happening. 2.5 months of inventory, we're seeing 20, 30, 40, 60 days on market sometimes right now, but still a seller's market. 4 to 6 months, balanced market. 6+ buyer's market. We're nowhere near a buyer's market at this point. Based on what we're seeing, that Amazon effect, where people list and it's gone, it doesn't exist. And so going back to what you said, the education is key. We're seeing with your team and your listings and your transactions, you guys are doing things very differently, to a point where even while other properties will sit on the market, your properties won't. What is it that you're doing? What's the secret sauce here? What's special about your listing system?
There's no secret. We for the past 8 to 10 years that we've basically been on the real estate business, we've seen trial and error basically, right? And what we're noticing is, so let's go with sellers, because there's two different sellers and buyers. So with the sellers, what we do is we don't overpromise, especially in today's, and the markets are different. So in today's market, We don't overpromise. If we have an unrealistic seller, we'll educate them, we'll advise them of, hey, this is the price point where your home should sell. If they're okay with it, we'll give them the minimum of basically what it'll go for. If we get more, great, it's beneficial to them. But if they're unrealistic, we don't take the listing, refuse it. And I keep telling other agents as well, because I got other agents that call me and say, hey, how come yours sold in 7 days? I've been on the market for 18 days and I only got a few showings. And I go, what are you doing different? So my client's being really strict. I'm like, that's your fault. Don't take a listing on just to put your sign up there, because A, you're spending money on the home.
Yeah.
You're investing into their property. They don't care about selling. Now it's going to have a negative impact on the home, a negative impact on you, and the client is going to be pissed off. And as soon as your sign is removed, now they're already upset. Somebody else is going to come and put up their sign there and sell it way below just because they knew how to educate that client.
Yeah.
Right. So our goal always, we've refused multiple listings. We've actually refused, like out of 10 listings probably in the past 2 months, I've probably refused about 3 or 4 of them. Just because they're being unrealistic, we don't need to just put up a sign and give a bad impact on us. I'd rather work with realistic sellers. And once they give us that opportunity to go, here's the key, do what you like, then we know how to work on their home and how to sell their home at the maximum potential as we can.
You know what's interesting about that? What you're saying, it makes so much sense. And I think so many people get caught up in, no, I know what I'm doing. A lot of people are savvy. You can go to websites where you get all the analytics and all the data. But the reality is that I can read a book on contract law doesn't make me a contract lawyer. And the things that a contract lawyer can pick out of a contract that somebody who read a contract law book can is totally different thing. And so what I'm hearing from you is it's the same thing. It's the years of experience, it's the mindset, and most importantly, it's the education, because you don't take listings to put your sign up. You don't take listings for sale. You take listings to sell. You make sure that it's sold. And if the client, just like me as a lawyer, if me and the client are on different pages, I will not be retained by that client.
Absolutely. Spend that time
spend
that time and utilize that time with clients who actually need the business, who actually need your services.
And I'm willing to bet, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm willing to bet that those clients that don't take your advice list with somebody else and then come back to you and you sell it for multiple offers over asking.
Absolutely. Although that happened recently with the condo that we sold in downtown, right? That was listed for about 3 months.
Right.
They had half the amount of showings that we had in 1 week.
Wow.
They had no offers. We managed to get 4 offers in there within 7 days.
That's incredible.
Sold it over $170 in today's market.
Yeah.
And it got pulled up by all the media outlets. Now we're actually, other media outlets are reaching out to us saying, how did you guys sell this home?
Absolutely.
Right? So
that's absolutely incredible.
It shows a difference, right? That's all it is. Just work with realistic sellers. Don't take on a listing just because you want to take a listing and you want to look cool and put up a sign, because you're wasting your time, you're wasting your money. And then it gives you a negative impact. That's all it is.
Yeah. Ahmad, if somebody's in the market right now looking for an agent, they're looking for someone that can advocate for them, educate them, and really give them the truth. How does someone like that get a hold of you and your team? How can they contact you?
Well, they can contact us through the office, of course, or they can go on our website at tirgopalgroup.com. They can contact us by cell, 416-949-5880. And we're happy to help anytime. The biggest thing, like, especially with buyers, before we cut off the interview, get your buyers pre-approved.
Yeah.
Buyers are beyond nervous right now. I've had buyers that could have bought $2 million homes 2 months ago, and they won't even buy $1 million home today, right? Yeah. So get them approved, give them the best of the best advice, educate yourself. If you're confused, go to, like for instance, we come to our brokers, go to your brokers, get as much advice as you can so you can pass on the correct advice to them instead of butting heads with them and they're know-it-alls, all of a sudden you're know-it-alls, and then you just lose the client.
Yeah.
Right. So
it's got to be for the client. At the end of the day, you've said it. You've hit the nail.
And it's becoming a service job now. It's not becoming a sales job anymore. Now it's becoming, you got to provide that extra service. It's becoming like a hospitality business. So where, okay, you get your clients' wants and needs. Yeah. Now, how do you work with their wants and needs, and then basically meet the goals for yourself and for the client?
Definitely. Ahmad, thank you so much for the insights. I know your time is very valuable, and I appreciate you coming out and educating and giving your insights. It's very important, especially in this market. If anybody's looking to get a hold of Ahmad and his team, give them a call, connect with them. We'll add all the details in the video here. And thank you, Ahmad. We'll see you again next time.
I appreciate your time. Thank you, Ricky.
Bye for now.
Okay, bye-bye.